A shocking clue may have just changed everything we thought we knew about the current crisis at the police department. For weeks, every single eye in Port Charles has been glued to the hit-and-run accident involving Jordan Ashford. The entire narrative has been carefully constructed to make us believe that Brooklyn Quartermain is on the verge of a total catastrophic downfall. We have watched her scramble, scheme, and ultimately confess to Harrison Chase that she orchestrated the framing of Willow Kane. The tension has been unbearable, and the audience has been waiting for the hammer to drop on Brooklyn. But what if I told you that this entire hit-and-run drama is nothing more than a spectacular misdirection? Something isn't adding up anymore, and if you look closely at the board, you will realize that the spotlight on Brooklyn is blinding us to a much darker reality operating in the background. We may be looking at a situation where someone else is pulling the strings, quietly gathering ammunition for a completely different kind of explosion. To understand the magnitude of what is about to happen, we have to look at the impossible position Harrison Chase is currently in. Brooklyn tearfully confessed to her husband that she planted the fake evidence to make Willow look like the driver who fled the scene of Jordan's accident. But here's the massive, glaring omission in her confession. She never admitted that she was the actual driver. She only confessed to the cover-up, not the crime itself. This half-truth places Chase in the most agonizing dilemma of his entire life. As a sworn officer of the law, his duty is crystal clear. He should arrest his wife, launch a full investigation, and let the justice system tear his family apart. But if he does that, he loses everything. His marriage will be instantly destroyed. The ongoing process to officially adopt baby Phoebe will be terminated immediately. Brooklyn would face years in prison for fleeing the scene and fabricating evidence. Chase is standing on the edge of a cliff, staring down at the destruction of his entire world, paralyzed by the weight of a decision he never wanted to make. That is exactly when a new detail could expose the truth and offer Chase a miraculous, albeit incredibly dark, way out. Picture Chase sitting at his desk at the PCPD, his head in his hands, completely consumed by the guilt of knowing his wife's terrible secret. The precinct is quiet, the weight of his badge feeling heavier than it ever has before. Suddenly, an anonymous package is placed on his desk. There is no return address, no note, no indication of who dropped it off. Inside this plain, unassuming package is a single, standard USB flash drive. This isn't just a random piece of technology. This is the smoking gun that will pivot the entire storyline. It may not be a coincidence that this drive arrives at the exact moment Chase is desperately searching for a miracle to save his family. If you ask me, this is where things become interesting. When Chase plugs that USB drive into his computer, his heart is likely pounding out of his chest. He probably expects to find the missing security footage of Brooklyn driving the car that hit Jordan. He probably braces himself for the final nail in his wife's coffin. But as the files load and populate on his screen, Chase is met with something entirely different. There is absolutely nothing on this drive about Jordan's accident. There is no mention of Brooklyn, no GPS data from her vehicle, nothing tying his wife to the hit and run. Instead, the entire contents of the drive are meticulously organized dossiers, video files, and encrypted communications focused entirely on one person, Willow Kane. Something feels off about the sheer volume of data collected here. This isn't just a quick surveillance job. This is a comprehensive, multi-year investigation into the darkest corners of Willow's life. As Chase clicks through the folders, he begins to see a horrifying pattern of criminal behavior that Willow has successfully buried for years. The first folder contains undeniable proof of Willow's psychological warfare against Daisy. We are talking about detailed logs of stalking, menacing messages, and the terrifying manipulation that ultimately forced Sasha to pack up and take Daisy out of town just to keep the girls safe. The evidence paints a picture of Willow not as a victim, but as a ruthless predator who systematically destroyed a young girl's sense of security. But there may be more to this story, and the deeper Chase digs into the USB drive, the more terrifying the revelations become. The next set of files focuses on Drew Kane. We all know that Drew has faced near-death experiences recently, and the official narratives have always been murky. The files on this anonymous drive contain concrete, irrefutable evidence that Willow was the one who violently attacked Drew, pushing him to the very edge of death, not just once, but twice. There are medical records, suppressed witness testimonies, and perhaps even hidden audio recordings that capture Willow's malicious intent. This isn't just a case of self-defense or a misunderstanding. This is attempted murder, calculated and executed with chilling precision. The bigger question is, how does this change the game for Harrison Chase? This could explain a lot about Willow's recent erratic behavior, her desperation to secure power on the hospital board, and her frantic need to control the narrative. For Chase, this USB drive is a lifeline thrown to a drowning man. He is holding enough evidence to lock Willow away for decades, and none of it has anything to do with Brooklyn's sloppy hit-and-run cover-up. The realization washes over him. He can still be the hero cop who takes down a dangerous criminal, but he can do it without sacrificing his wife. This leads us to the big reveal theory of the week. Chase is going to make a decision that will shock the entire police department and leave everyone in Port Charles reeling. He is going to completely pivot the investigation. Instead of pursuing the hit-and-run charges against Willow, which he knows are fake because Brooklyn planted them, he is going to launch a massive official investigation into Willow based entirely on the contents of the anonymous USB drive. He will walk into that interrogation room, look Willow dead in the eye, and arrest her for the stalking of Daisy and the attempted murders of Drew Kane. By doing this, Chase achieves the impossible. He takes a dangerous criminal off the streets, satisfying his need for justice. But more importantly, he permanently buries Brooklyn's secret. Because Willow is going down for much more severe crimes, the hit-and-run investigation will take a back seat, eventually going cold. Chase will intentionally omit Brooklyn's confession from his official reports. He will swallow his pride, compromise his legendary moral compass, and become an accessory after the fact, all to protect the woman he loves and ensure that baby Phoebe stays in their home. It is a brilliant, tragic, and incredibly dark turn for a character who has always walked the straight and narrow path. But we have to ask ourselves, who is the mastermind behind this perfectly timed delivery? Who has the resources, the patience, and the sheer ruthlessness to compile this mountain of evidence and drop it on Chase's desk at the exact right second? The first and most obvious suspect is Tracy Quartermaine. Tracy has always put the Quartermaine family above everything else, including the law. She recently looked Willow in the eye and compared her to Nell Benson, a statement that was dripping with venom and foresight. Tracy is not the kind of woman who sits idly by while her granddaughter's life implodes. She knew Brooklyn was terrified of losing Chase and Phoebe. It makes perfect sense that Brooklyn, in a moment of sheer panic, confessed the whole truth to Tracy, including the fact that she was the actual driver. Armed with that knowledge, Tracy would know that a simple cover-up wouldn't be enough to save Brooklyn from Chase's righteous justice. She needed to give Chase a bigger target, a monster so terrible that he would gladly look the other way on a hit and run just to put the monster behind bars. Tracy has the immense wealth, the global connections, and the private investigators required to dig up Willow's buried crimes. She orchestrated this entire data dump to force Chase's hand, protecting the Quartermaine legacy and ensuring Brooklyn's survival. However, we cannot ignore the possibility of a wild card. What if the sender isn't Tracy at all? What if there is a completely new, mysterious figure operating in the shadows of Port Charles? We know that a highly connected business executive named Hudson is scheduled to arrive in town soon. Could Hudson be the one who has been tracking Willow's every move? Perhaps someone from Willow's past, someone connected to Daisy, or even the cult days, has been biding their time, meticulously gathering every shred of proof needed to destroy her. If a new player is behind this, it means Willow has an enemy she doesn't even know exists, an invisible sniper who just handed the police the ultimate weapon. Regardless of who sent the drive, the aftermath of this event will be catastrophic for Willow Kane. She has spent years cultivating this image of a loving mother, a dedicated professional, and a victim of circumstance. She thought she was fighting a battle over a fabricated hit and run, charge, a charge she knew she could eventually beat because she was innocent of it. She is completely unprepared for a targeted strike on her actual, very real crimes. When Chase drops the evidence of the Drew Kane attacks and the Daisy stalking on the table, Willow's carefully constructed world will shatter into a million pieces. She will lose her newly acquired seat on the hospital board, she will lose her freedom, and she will finally have to face the dark reflection of her own action. We may be looking at the beginning of something huge here. The dynamic of power in Port Charles is about to flip violently. Brooklyn will survive by the skin of her teeth, forever indebted to whoever sent that drive, and forever tied to a husband who compromised his soul to save her. Chase will have to live with the heavy burden of being a dirty cop, knowing that the true hit-and-run driver is sleeping in his bed every night. And Willow will finally face the music for the sins she thought were buried forever. The truth could be closer than anyone realizes, and it is coming in the form of a tiny, silent USB drive. Someone has been watching, someone has been recording, and someone has finally decided that playtime is over. Willow Kane may not be ready for what's coming next, but the trap has already been sprung, and there is absolutely nowhere left for her to run. Stay tuned, guys, because this investigation is about to blow the roof off of Port Charles.
Goodbye. Please like, subscribe, and comment on the GH Spoilers Daily channel.